Hey guys, Captain Mike, welcome to Whiskey and Literature. I'm excited about tonight because we're doing a bourbon blind, 12-year-old edition. And these are all, as far as I'm concerned, pretty fantastic whiskeys. And Mrs. Captain set this up for me. On the bottom of each bottle is a sticker with a letter. On each Glencairn here is a corresponding letter. I don't know which is which. She set this up for me. And I'm not gonna go through the specs and stats of these whiskeys like I typically do. We're just gonna talk about them very briefly. I'll throw up on the screen here what their mash bill and price and stuff like that is. And just to keep it as short as we can. Okay, first of all, we got the 1792, aged 12 years, and I've kind of slept on 1792 for quite a while until, because, you know, honestly, they've been hard to find. I've not seen 1792, except for the full proof here in the Bay in the small batch for quite a while. I actually talked to a liquor store owner who does a lot of stuff, and she was saying she hadn't even seen any aged 12 years for years in the Bay. But I feel like all of a sudden there's been an explosion of 1792 products, especially the age 12 years here, and it's fairly easy to find and at MSRP, which I think is great. Though I did have to buy mine in a pack with a bottle of rum, but not a bad deal. I think it was $79. But overall, I think of these three bottles, this is the lowest MSRP and probably the second most difficult to find. It won 2023 International Wine and Spirits Competition, highest scoring American whiskey. Knob Creek 12 year. This is the easiest to find in the Bay. I was at a couple different liquor stores today and pretty much all of them had the Knob Creek 12 year. There's a whole stack of them at Total Wine & More. It's mid-price between these two for MSRP. And the great thing about this, it really showcases the best, I think, of what Knob Creek can do. And having said that, I haven't opened my 15 or 18 year yet. Jack Daniel's aged 12 years. This is the batch 1. I bought this before these two. I've had this the longest and I paid the most MSRP. It is the highest, though not by a whole lot over the Knob Creek here, but I've not seen this anywhere in the Bay at MSRP. And I'm not even gonna tell you what I paid for this, but it was multiples of what I paid for these two bottles. And I think it is probably one of the best Jack Daniel products that I've ever had. It is certainly the highest proof between these two. There's not a whole lot. There's a 10-point difference between the lowest and the highest. The mash bills for these three bottles are fairly similar. You know what? Let's get it and then call it a night. When I look at these A and B, I feel like when they're sitting here, the color is pretty similar. They are sitting on this wood, which has different colors, this Lazy Susan, but they're very similar colors. Occasionally we'll sit in the front room with 3 or 4 or 5 different whiskeys and taste them while we're watching a movie or something. And you can very clearly distinguish which whiskey is which because of the color and the richness sometimes. There's just so much variation. It's very, very easy to tell. Tonight, these are obviously very similar. And the point really isn't to try and pick out which one is which, more just tonight, which one do I prefer? Because again, these are all, I think, fantastic whiskeys. So if I had to distinguish right now, I would say A is slightly darker or richer, perhaps more amber, more copper, more this a little bit of a reddish more hue than B. And I would say A over C. Very clearly A is just slightly darker. Again, that little bit of a red hue to it. These are probably more similar, but perhaps B is just slightly darker as well than C, if that matters to you. All right, A. I had a pour earlier of The Traveler. I was doing a book video, so I had some Traveler there with me. What do you think of The Traveler? I'm not sold on it, to be honest with you. I have three bottles of it because I bought some other bottle, and to get that bottle, I had to buy 2 bottles of Traveler. It still ended up being, I think, a pretty good deal, and I was happy to make that exchange. And that Traveler for me has just kind of become a mix-in whiskey or something that I save for those friends, the 2 friends that I have who come over who haven't had whiskey before. That's, I think, is something good for them. All right. Legs are slow in coming down. Lots of legs. Nice nose. It's real present. I'm not going to say bright, but it's or aggressive really. It's just it's very present. You're not having to hunt for it. It's rich. A little bit, just a little bit of alcohol there on the nose, but it's not overwhelming. It's certainly not some big cask strength something or another where it's just blasting your nose to shreds. Got some nice fruits in there, some sweetness. Of course, I expect all of these to have some oak in them, being 12 years old. Just rich fruit, maybe a hint of banana in there. Maybe that's part of the fruit there, but there's some other kind of darker, maybe some cherries in there as well, some oak. It's very rich, and it's a nice amount of vanilla as well. This is an excellent nose. Cheers. Really nice, really nice. Just again, the hint of banana, perhaps a bit of marshmallow instead of that banana. Certainly a bit of oak on there, some fruits, just very rich. It's viscous. It's bringing the heat just a bit. It's not overwhelming me with alcohol and heat, but it's just some sweetness forward, followed by just a nice balance of sweetness and heat. Very, very good. A nice viscosity to it. It's not overwhelmingly viscous and oily, but it's not thin and watery. It's just nice, lingering just a bit. That heat is just kind of a little bit of warmth coming in. That's a very nice pour. Have you had all of these whiskeys? What are your thoughts on them? I'm coming up here, going to do a blind on the Knob Creek. I have the 9, 12, 15, and 18-year-old Knob Creek. I haven't opened a 15 or the 18. For some reason, that 15 was the most difficult for me to find. The 12's everywhere, 18 I see occasionally, and the 15, and I searched for that for at least 6 months until I finally found one here in the Bay. I would say this one, the legs ran down more quickly. Still lots of legs, but I feel like in the first glass A, they kind of resisted coming down, so maybe it's a little more viscous than B. Cheers. It's amazing how 3 whiskeys with kind of the same mash bill, age, within 10 points of proof, can taste obviously so different. And if you're familiar with whiskey, that's not surprising to you. The nose on this was nice. I've already had a sip of it, just getting into it here. It has a bit of a nutty flavor to it. That's the first distinguishing feature that I can tell between A and B. There was none of that nut note in A, where I have, sometimes it's like a rich nut. You think like maybe it's a walnut or something like that. This is more of a peanutty note. It's more faint on the nose than A was. There's no alcohol in the nose at all. Still a nice richness. A bit brighter perhaps than A, but not as much alcohol, not as sweet even. Just a little bit of just a little duller perhaps with that, just a bit of that nut note in there. Anyway, cheers again. There's no real heat on it. It's nice, but it's lacking that balance, I think, between the sweetness and and those nice richness on that first one. And that nut is a nice complement to the taste. It's not lingering as much because it doesn't have that heat to kind of just leave you with that nice warming finish. I mean, I can still taste it, and but it's just not as satisfying as A. So definitely, I'm going to put A over B. How's your 1792 collection? You know, I really just ignore them, and I'm pretty sad that when I go to Louisville, they have shuttered their distillery for tours. I think their website just says they are perfecting the art of bourbon, which honestly, from the bottles that I have, man, I'm really happy with the 1792 products that I have. I might be more of a foolproof guy than a age 12 years guy. It's just more exciting and bright and aggressive. I think it's a great pour. Okay, Charlie, C. Ooh, wow. Okay, that's twice now. As I go into B, I get like a bit of nose of just of alcohol and some ethanol, which I'm not getting on A or C. I just want to compare that real quick to C. I mean, same exact motion that I did with B there, and I don't get that same alcohol and ethanol there on my nose. And maybe I'm not using those words correctly, but you know what I'm talking about. But C is just rich and deep and mature. I mean, these are all 12 years, or at least 12 years, right? But I feel like C is the most mature, the most rich, and getting that from the nose. It doesn't have that alcohol, not the alcohol, but that bit of heat that I was getting from A. It doesn't have that alcohol that I was getting from B. There's none of that banana note. It's more of a rich fruit note. Man, I really like C's nose. Of these three, C's nose is the best. Rich, mature, nice. Yeah, I think those are my descriptors there. Again, cheers. Nice. It's very nice. It's just, again, deep and rich with some nice caramels, some nice deep brown sugars. There's some fruits on there. Just a hint of spice to kind of balance out everything. It is, I think, the most viscous of the three. Kind of, it's just, the mouthfeel is nice. It's not overly viscous where you're kind of just chewing on it, but very, again, rich, dark, deep, mature. Nice fruits, just enough heat on my mouth, just kind of lingering because of that viscosity. It's not actually coming down as much warming as A, but it's just more just lingering up in here in my palate. Just nice richness. Definitely some fruits in there. I'm gonna say some cherries. And just enough spice to make it interesting. Very nice. I didn't even look at the legs on there. Whatever. I'm pointing again. Cheers. I think it's pretty clear that B here would be tonight from these three whiskeys, would be my perhaps least interesting, least favorite tonight. C, I think, just has that depth and maturity. I would just want to sip on this for a long time. I really enjoyed it. Just enough warmth and heat to make it nice and balanced, but it's not overwhelming. And I think, let's go back into A. Let's go back into A again. And I'm gonna have a bit of water. I had the Jack Daniel's 10-year-old, and I bought these on the same day, and I haven't opened the 10-year-old yet. I think I can see a 10-year-old whiskey blind. It's about the 1924 Old Forester. That's 10 years, and I think that perhaps versus the Jack Daniel's 10 year, that might be a good head-to-head comparison. Have you guys had the 1924 yet? I haven't opened it. Haven't gotten around to it. I mean, I've had that Jack Daniel's for 6 months and I haven't opened it. I think that was batch 2 of the 10 year. Man, it's like a different nose than C. I think I like the richness of C more than perhaps the brightness and the heat from A on the nose. God, A is fantastic though. It has a nice amount, just that. It has more spice. It is nice and rich as well, and it has just a bit more heat than C. So, you know, I'm actually gonna go, and it's tough. Maybe there's more depth and maturity, I feel like, in C than A, but I'm gonna go with A because they're both rich, they're both viscous, but there's just a little more, maybe balance, maybe a little more of that heat, that spice on A that I do prefer. So I'm going to go A, C, B. All right, let's figure out which one I have. So if you could choose, what would be your preference? If you had these three, have you had all three of them? Which would be your preference? I would say for me, probably, I'm gonna put Knob Creek in the end, and my perhaps least favorite of these three, but by no means do I not enjoy this whiskey. Between these two here, I really like the richness of the 1792, and I really, man, it's 12-year-old. I'm a big fan of Jack Daniel's, and I have been since we did their distillery tour in 2021, I think it was. I'm gonna say maybe, just offhand, I would prefer Jack Daniel's 1792 Knob Creek. I'm not saying that's what these are. In fact, I'm kind of thinking it's not, but let's go through them here. So my least favorite is B. So anyway, let's see what these here are. Okay, Knob Creek. Knob Creek is B. So C. Oh wow, okay, C is 1792. And A is, of course, the Jack Daniel's 12-year. Again, I think these are all great whiskeys. I'd be happy to drink them anytime. I'd be happy if someone came to my house. Man, could you imagine pouring them this lineup? What a nice grouping of whiskeys. I wish this was more available, and it is what it is. And I know the next batch 2 of this is out, I believe. Again, I haven't seen them in the Bay anywhere here. I don't expect to find them, and I'm certainly not going to pay what I paid for this bottle. I've really decided to limit my purchasing to less than what I paid as far as how many multiples above MSRP I paid for this. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not saying I'm not going to pay above MSRP, but you know, 50%. Like, would you pay that? Would you pay 50% over this? Let's say the MSRP is 89. I would pay 50% over for this, but would I pay 3 times? If that's what I pay for this, I wouldn't do that again. I think it's a great pour, but what I paid for it, I wouldn't do it again. 1792, I paid $79 for this, plus a bottle of rum. Would I do that? Yes. I would even pay $79 for this bottle without the bottle of rum. $69 for this Knob Creek 12. Yes. All day, every day. Absolutely great pours of whiskey. Thoughts, guys? What order would you put? And I think this is actually my order, and this is what it came out to be tonight. And I'm fairly happy with those results. So, my guys, if you enjoyed the video, like it, subscribe to see more of my content. I do both whiskey and book reviews. But for now, you know what to do. I hope you're reading something good and drinking something great. Turn the pages, my friends, and stay thirsty. Cheers.